Hi there, this is Vahid from VRF Education channel, and I'm so happy that you're watching this series. In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you the concept of object-oriented programming in Python. I assume that you already know the basics of programming in Python, and you want to enhance your programming level by learning object-oriented programming. Well, there's a tutorial for beginners in Python in my channel, but unfortunately it's in Persian, and you might not understand what am I saying. By any chance, if you're familiar with Persian, you can watch that tutorial too. I've seen a lot of programmers that work with Python and develop software in Python, but their main subject was not a software engineer at university, and they just use libraries in Python to do their requirements and develop some softwares. If you want to create some advanced software, some real software that works in the best way and you can maintain it over the time, you should be aware of object-oriented programming very well and apply it during your development. In this series, I'm gonna share you my experience with object-oriented programming, and I hope you enjoy this tutorial. And do not forget to tell your opinion about videos to help me make them better. So let's start our journey in object-oriented programming in Python. So what is object-oriented programming, or in a shorter way, OOP? It's not a new thing or even a new technology in computer programming. It has been around for more than 50 years, and nowadays almost all programming languages support it completely. This is just another programming paradigm that helps developers organize their software design. By software design, we mean the structure, basic structure of the program and the relationship between different parts of the programs. And in this paradigm, we focus on objects or entities inside our application domain, rather than focusing on functional logics in comparison to the older methods. In those methods, we create some functions or even modules that contain some functions that hold some logics of our application and then call them. And when the application grows, it becomes very hard to maintain the code. And this is why the object-oriented programming became so popular, and I will count a couple of these paradigm benefits in the next slide for you. And this is well suited for medium to large scale applications that updated frequently, and we should maintain them through the time. Nowadays, we don't have any small size application. By application, I mean those that are going to be used somewhere for real, not the university projects or those applications that we might create for enjoyment. And in medium to large scale application, we definitely should use object-oriented principle to create a robust application that could be updated in the future and also maintained by the others if we create or if we model our objects truly. If I want to briefly describe an object, it's something that we encounter day to day. It's an entity inside an application domain, and I will give you an example very soon. And each object has two things. First of all, characteristics that we can distinguish it from the others, and the behavior of that object. Keep these two in mind, and I will back to this concept very soon. There are a couple of benefits for object-oriented programming, and I try to list the most important ones here, and you can search for the others on the internet. And there's one that I forgot to mention here, and it's somehow informal. That's the basic requirements. If you look for a job position in any company with any programming languages, the basic requirement is that you should be familiar completely with object-oriented principle. And after that, you should be able to work with design patterns. And in order to be able to work with design patterns and apply those patterns to your code, you should be completely familiar with object-oriented principles. So try to practice a lot and get familiar with it completely. It will help for you in your jobs and in your designs, everything. You should look to the software from the object-oriented point of view. Modularity, collaborative development, reusability, this is the most important one. Scalability, as I told, when the application grows dramatically, you can scale your software easily. Efficiency, and this is because we separate objects from each other, and we can use services from any object that we want instead of just tightly couple each object to each other. Interface description is very important, especially in design patterns. We just trying to know the objects and the services through their interfaces, not their implementation. This is very important. And the security, the main aspect of this one is about encapsulation in object-oriented programming, that we will talk about all of these in this series. So what we are going to talk in this series, we mainly talk about classes, objects, fields and methods, and other stuff that is related to object-oriented programming, and it's common among all the programming languages. All these concepts are somehow common between different programming languages. And we also focus on some other concept that somehow specific to Python. But in some other programming languages, we have some equivalent, for example, for magic methods and arithmetic methods. But they are mainly specific to Python, and we will talk about it during this series. And we also will talk about access modifiers, properties, overriding. These are also common between different programming languages. And the object class, that is again specific to Python, and we will talk about it in detail in the next sections. The first question for almost every programmer who are new to object-oriented programming is how to use it. First of all, we need to identify entities or objects in our application domain. What do we mean by this phrase? I will tell it you through an example in the next slide, don't worry. Each entity or object has two different things with itself. The first one is the thing that distinguishes object from the others. These are called characteristics, and we model them in our application using fields or attributes. So these two are some keywords in our object-oriented environment. Fields or attributes are the things that we use to distinguish object from each other. These are the characteristics of an object or entity. For example, imagine a person as an object. Each person has a name, has a weight, has a, for example, tallness, skin color, and anything that can be used to distinguish that person, and that is important for our application context. This is very important. For example, if you want to create a banking account, the skin color is not important, okay? But if you want to create an application for modeling, registering person to be a model, the skin color also is an important characteristics of an object. The other one is the behavior. For example, a person can walk, can talk, can jump, or can sleep. These are the behavior of objects that we model them through the method of an object. And we will talk about it deeply in the next session. We use class to model objects inside our application. Class is nothing but just a blueprint or template to create objects. By class, we tell the Python interpreter that the objects contains these characteristics and these behavior. This is just a couple of definitions, nothing more. And you will be getting familiar with it in the next session. The roadmap for this series is that after getting familiar with the object-oriented principle, I suggest to getting familiar with design patterns. Design patterns are some best practices for well-known issues in programming that you're going to face definitely in future. Design patterns are mainly based on object-oriented principle. So you should be completely understand object-oriented to be able to know design patterns in a good way. And you should use some principles such as solid in object-oriented design to enrich your models. This is very important, and I will create another video for this specific topic in future. Now let's dive into object-oriented world using a simple example. Here we have a simple scenario that is common among all of us, and we might do it from time to time. Imagine a customer wants to withdraw some money from his or her account in a bank using a check sheet. This is a definition that we want to create some software for this definition. Somehow weird, but we want to do it. And the main goal of this job is to identify entities in this context. Here we have two different type of entities, explicit one and implicit ones. Explicit one is the one that we can extract from by reading the definition or the scenario that they gave us. Okay, you can pause the video and try to extract the explicit objects for yourself. Now let's check it. Customer, bank, account, and check sheet. These are 4 different objects that we can extract from this scenario easily. Okay, a customer, a person that wants to withdraw. Withdraw is a behavior, it's not an object. Okay, money from his or her account. This is another object. Account has its own characteristics and also has its own behavior. We can deposit or withdraw money from or to our account. In a bank, in order to work with the bank, we should model it inside our application. Using a check sheet, this is the utility that we can use to withdraw money. So we should model it to work with that in our application. So what about implicit entities? Think about it a little bit more. Now let's check it. Branch, clerk, and checkbook. So what is branch? When we talk about bank, we go into a specific branch of a bank. So we should model the branch itself alongside with the bank in our application. And also, when we go to a branch, we gave our check sheet to a clerk to handle it or to withdraw money from our account. So we should model the clerk in our application to know which employee works for us. And the other one is checkbook. Each check sheet is assigned to a checkbook. When you go and request for a check, they give you a checkbook that contains a couple of check sheets. Okay, so this is the implicit object that we should be aware about to model our object, to model or to organize our software robustly. And do not worry, after a couple of months working with the object-oriented paradigms and try to work in different domains or different application contexts, you're able to extract entities much easier than now. These are the basic concepts that we want to talk about, and I hope you get familiar with the object identification. The main goal of this session is the introduction and also object identification principle inside an application, and we will talk about it in much detail in next sessions. I hope you enjoy the things that I told you in this session, and I will see you on the next session.